not gonna tell how it'll be on up here. The gears and stuff inside, I put a lot more work into it than you'll ever see again now that it's closed up, but there's a little TARDIS and stuff going on in there that you'll never see again, but I had fun doing it. That's all still foam inside. It was gold leafed, but my weathering kind of ruined that. And then more leather work on the outside. But yeah, it's super strong too. The little strappings are just screwed on to the Warbler, and yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, warbler can be melted and sculpted just like clay.
Absolutely. If you, and it's really usable too. What she's saying is, it comes in a sheet, and you can cut it out into these flat pieces too. But if you have scraps that you use,
Don't throw any of it away.
Exactly. You can heat it up and roll it into a little ball of putty, and then take a rolling pin and flatten that out, and you got a new sheet again. So it's completely reusable. If you mess up and you don't like it, rip that off and reuse it again. So.
How do you spell that?
WORLVA. And yeah, it's expensive, but it's super fun to work with. And in fact, this ball right here is all rolled up into a ball too. Right now, I'm working on an arachnid from Starship Troopers that is going to be all Warbler, just because it's so super light and so strong that it's.
If you're looking for you want to do a shoulder pauldron or something,
This has one of those that I was wearing yesterday, but
I use an Easter egg.
Today.
You can buy those big Easter eggs, and then in it, it's a smaller Easter egg and a smaller Easter egg.
Yeah.
They're all the different shapes, and then you just use it as your mold.
Yeah. The Bushka Easter eggs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good idea.
My advice with Warbler is make sure you have something as a base though. Like he was saying with the EVA foam. Because Warbler is a low enough heat for thermoplastic that if you leave it in the car on a hot day,
It'll flatten out.
it'll flatten out unless you have some sort of a light foam structure even. Like a lot of people use just regular sheets of craft foam. I had one friend that made a mask, did not put any craft foam or anything behind it. They were heading down from Seattle to a convention in San Jose, and they left it in the back seat while they went in to grab some quick food, and came out, and all of her 5 hours of work the night before they left was hardly identifiable as a mask.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up too. It's lucky we live in Seattle and Portland, and I'm sorry if anybody doesn't live in these areas, but we have good weather where we don't have to worry about the heat in the car. You're traveling down to California where the heat is going to melt our projects. EVA foam, if you haven't worked with it, most people use hot glue guns. Great, but if you travel or live in areas where the temperatures are warm, your Iron Man costume is going to fall apart. That's just the simple fact of it. Contact cement. Contact cement is what I use. It's called dry mounting. You paint both sides of the pieces that you want to stick together, and when they're not shiny anymore to where they're almost dry, but not dry enough, you put them together, they're never coming apart again without ripping that foam.
Contact cement, barge is one of the common names, and we use a lot of E6000. We say that if regular glue is made out of horses, then E6000 is made out of unicorns. We've never had a problem. We've cobbled boots together that have then been in the ocean and been through all sorts of pirate events and conventions, all seasons, and I think 2 years later we first had a little bit of an edge come up. But on the hot glue front, if you're creating something, whether it's a gun or a backpack, and you don't, and you want that look that it's welded, if you put a line of hot glue and then paint over it, it doesn't melt as badly after it's painted, and if it's non-essential, then it's not as big of a deal. It's not going to have your entire prop fall apart.
Because there's no stress on it, it's not pulling two
Yeah.
parts apart. It's just
but it looks like that line of welding. On that same note, or on a similar note, if you're looking for fake rivets, like on a gun or a holster or something, googly eyes.
Wait to say that.
That might be the entire reason that I like doing this panel, is googly eyes or fake rivets. When I learned that, it was like a light bulb turned on, the skies opened up, and there were angels singing. Also, if you want fancy rivets, places like Claire's and Icing, they have the like facial sticker things that look like jewels. If you paint over them, they just look like fancy rivets. I do recommend putting a heavier glue than just the stickiness of the googly eyes or the jewels. Just like a little dab of, like I said, E6000, use it all the time. Because that's where I find the falter point. But then you glue it on, let it dry, paint it, and nobody knows. Unless you put like an entire package of googly eyes, and then every time you take a step, it kind of shakes. But it's amusing.
Another thing too, I don't know if anyone was worked with Sculpty clay. Sculpty clay is super cheap and lots of fun to work with, and you can do millions and millions of things. Another cool rivet thing, if you want details for like screws or hexagon shapes or whatever, you just take a little bit of Sculpty clay, just stamp whatever your positive is that you want.
The shape that you want.
Exactly. A real rivet or a real screw or whatever. Make yourself a mold that way. And then bake that. Some people even boil their Sculpty clay too, so it doesn't crack. But I baked it, I even left it in half hour past its time, and I've never had a problem with it. It stinks, but that's about it. But when you have that mold, you can take additional Sculpty clay, pop it in there, and then you have little negatives from all your thing, and then you can just glue those onto your thing too if you want more precise looking things for that. But yeah, you can do that. Either
You can also-
do resin,
Yeah, you can pour resin into a Sculpty mold.
but that takes fractions and stuff, and I'm not that pro.
One, pour together.
Two things.
Yes.
One is, how do you deal with the fumes?
That's why.
And two, on your molds, paper mache will also pack in there.
Yes.
It's very light.
Yes. Fumes. Well, we've worked with a lot of worse things like fiberglass, where even having a garage open isn't enough. So I don't advocate it, but if you condition yourself into heavier fumes, then Sculpty doesn't, like, to me, it's not even a fume, it's just the smell of, like, different clays have different smells, and that's just the smell of Sculpty. Generally with Sculpty, I've found that leaving the window open and the oven fan on, I don't notice it when I walk in. And I don't think that it's because our living room just smells like leather all the time.
The fumes I'm talking about
Yeah.
is very minimal. It's just like somebody stepped in silly putty and walked all over your house. It's not a big deal. Resin and stuff like that, that is going to make your eyes
Some of
water and stuff like that. Some of them, yeah, they have some safer ones too. I live in an apartment. My paint booth is my stairwell. I'm not getting my deposit back. I don't have a garage, I don't have a workshop, so what I do, I can't really work with fiberglass, I can't work with Bondo or stuff like that. That would be a little bit more dangerous. So I try to find ways to cheat the harder stuff. Or I bug my friends that have those type of luxuries that have that, and I'm like, can I hang out in your garage for a couple hours and ignore you? So those are the kind of things I try to do.
Yes.
What are your favorite paints for different types of materials, like plastic and metal and leather and...
So, leather, if you're looking for a specific leather paint, Angelas, one of those. It's either OS or AS. And those are made specifically for painting on leather. And their colors are very vibrant. They're ever increasing their color supply. I don't know where to get them up here. I know in Portland, Oregon Leather Company carries all of the colors and then usually an announcement of what colors are coming soon. And you can get that. I want to say I've seen them at a couple of the art stores, like not craft warehouse type, but more of the Blick, like 17 different kinds of canvas style art stores. For plastics and metals and stuff, Rust-Oleum spray paint is what we tend to go to. And you can play with some of the interactions between the spray paint and acrylics. And sometimes, like if you put a base of spray paint and then acrylic on top of it, it will stick better to whatever material. And then you can also use that as part of your weathering process. Scrape a little bit of the acrylic off and ta-da, it's even metal underneath, or that style of thing.
Let's segue into weathering too.
Yeah.
Paints I use as far as enamels, spray paints, I just go to the hardware store and whatever is closest to the color I want, I don't care what brand. What I try to do as far as other paints is with acrylics. I love using acrylics. First of all, they're so much fun to weather with because of the fact that they are water-based. So you can mess with it, and if you don't like it, you just take a wet cloth and remove it. That wet cloth can be your friend as far as weathering because you can take something and drag it with the wet cloth. You can put it into a $1 little spray bottle, water it down, and spray it and watch it drip down for more weather effects. You can take a dry brush and drag it around or stipple it for dirt or something like that. There's a lot of dirt on here, which is just a brown oxide acrylic paint. It will rub off, and so when I'm completely happy with my paint jobs, whatever they might be, I just spray it with a coat of enamel, clear either gloss or flat enamel once I'm happy with it. When I'm doing latex work, they're perfect for that too. I airbrush them on, and then I finish them with something called PermaWet, which is sold on monstermakers.com, which is just a gloss finish that will seal your latex mask or whatever latex work that you're working with. If you water that down, it won't be as glossy, so it doesn't look like it's completely wet too. Also, I've tinted latex. You can buy fancy latexes in all sorts of different colors and pay lots of extra premium money for it. Or you can just buy a gallon of latex for $55 online and then make any color you want just by buying these little 68-cent tubes of acrylic paints from the hobby store or the art craft store, and then make whatever colors you want just by just get a little dollar store Tupperware thing and then put amount of latex you want in there, squeeze your acrylic paint in there, mix colors, and then paint them on. They will, with the latex, they will dry darker than what you're mixing, so always test out what you do. Each time I do a project and I want to try a new skill, I'll add it to that thing and figure out what I want to do for my next project. And so it's a lot of testing, trial and error. I was trying to learn a new skill every time I do a costume, so that's a lot of fun too.
What was the gloss called?
It's called PermaWet.
Do you have any tips for someone who's just starting in prop making and starting off using things like Nerf guns and how to work with the plastic without, like, trying to take those things apart? Yeah, I end up breaking more than anything else. Any tips on working with things like that and trying to
Yeah, absolutely.
get rid of and get things to adhere to that plastic, especially paint?
Okay, so with that plastic, it's the same kind of plastics that is used with like water bottles. It's and I forgot the name of the plastic, but super glue doesn't work. And I built my nephew. He wanted to be the Rocketeer for Halloween, and I'm just like, oh, this will be easy to just take some recycled soda bottles and a couple of things and put it together. and I went through so many different glues trying to find the right glue. There is sold at hardware stores for one little tube of super glue, and it's a super glue, is $3 unfortunately. But it has a tube of super glue and a cure thing, which looks like a marker. And you have to mark both sides and cure the plastics first, and then use the glue for that. And I forgot the name of the type of plastic that is, but that was the only thing I found. I tried all the different glues. Did you know the name of it?
There is a website that goes over that.
Yeah,
And
it's
tells
a
all the-
huge hobby.
Yeah.
Everybody does it, and there's forums out there. Like I said, internet's gonna be your best friend. And as far as that, and just say, I don't know what the word would be.
Oh man, I totally just had it. There's even a couple of Facebook groups for Nerf gun
Okay.
modders. And they have a lot of tips. When we're working with plastic and we do a lot of vacuum forming and that kind of thing, ABS cement, it comes in a can, and the lid has a dauber. It's the same thing, like, it's usually like in the PVC aisle, the plumbing aisle, at Home Depot. And that's what I found works for anything except a silicone-based plastic. So, and it's sandable, so it can fill in holes. You can sand it down to a better texture after it's cured, which is about 24 to 36 hours. Patience. Don't try and rush it. And for most of the older style Nerf guns at least, I haven't looked since like the zombie ones started coming out, but for all the older style Nerf guns, there's actually like people who have gone through and broken down like step by step by step where to put pressure on the various pieces to get them to come apart.
There's a website called the Prop Replica Forum. If you haven't heard about it,
Replica platform.
Is it-
It's the RPF.
yeah, thank you. Take the rest of your life and get addicted to it. I wasn't into any of this, and that's what got me into it. Before I got into costuming, I was addicted to Back to the Future. I was obsessed with it since I was a kid, and I was collecting every single toy, and one day I became an adult and said, I don't want the toys anymore, I want the car. And so I decided to build the time machine. And I started building it, and I needed to find more information because there's no how-to manual from Doc Brown. And so I started looking up information, and I came across this website, and I found a lot of reference photos and people saying, well, I built this particular prop, or I built this particular prop. And I ended up getting about 90% of the way and couldn't figure out the answer to the $30,000 question of where the DeLorean was, but all the props were finished, and it's since been adopted by somebody who had the car, and the car's been finished, and I got to play in it. It's gorgeous. But I found myself addicted to the website, inspired by it daily by all the people that are doing things, but they have everything from Nerf guns to cars to costumes to anything that will just blow your mind, and you'll find a million different hobbies for things. But yeah, you go on there, you type in Nerf gun, and you will find everybody's opinion and know-how on how to do things.